Hello, I'm Kirk Dominick, the President and CEO of the World Federation of Youth Clubs. I'd like to welcome you to today's episode of Youth Development Beyond Borders. Could not be more excited to welcome today's host, Dr. J.D. Larock, the President and CEO of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. For more than 30 years, this is an organization that's been leading a global movement for equitable access to entrepreneurship education. And so we're excited to talk about that today with J.D. Welcome, JD. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our listening audience and maybe give us a bit of history on the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, better known as NFTE.
Thanks so much, Kirk, and I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. Can't wait to share all of what we do at NFTE with your listeners. NFTE was founded in 1987 in New York City by a school teacher from the Bronx. And he noticed that while his students may not have had much in the way of resources and networks, they had an incredible drive to succeed, an incredible entrepreneurial spirit. And NFTE was founded on the idea that young people, no matter what their circumstance, have an incredible drive to be the best that they can be, and that starting a business is a fantastic way to bring that out into the world. So for 38 years now, we have been working now in 30 states and 27 countries around the world to bring entrepreneurship education to underserved communities. Our programs are in schools. We train teachers to deliver our curriculum. It takes different sort of flavors, and we can talk about that, I'm sure, in our conversation. But the end goal of all NFTE programs is the same: to have young people come out the other end with a solid business plan, with a solid pitch deck, and the ability to pitch their business idea in front of a crowd of experts who can assess the validity of their plans. And I'm proud to say, in our nearly 4 decades of history, NFTE is responsible for the careers of thousands and thousands of business owners, from small businesses to big companies whose names you would know. And so it's an honor and a pleasure to have been leading this organization for the last nearly 5 years.
That's fantastic. What a life-changing mission for sure. So we think about this global approach to youth development, and obviously WFYC is in the middle of that, as is NFTE. 1.9 billion youth, depending on how you define youth. But if you think about ages 10 to 24, 1.9 billion youth in this world, 90% of whom are living in developing countries. And at NFTE, you talk about this vision of everyone owning their future, which I think is an awesome vision, by the way. But you think about young people that are growing up in these developing countries without perhaps some of the more traditional pathways to a future and a career. Frame the need a little bit for us in terms of the importance of entrepreneurship skills in helping these young people work their way out of these developing circumstances.
Well, I mean, the proposition is pretty simple. If you're in a developing economy, you need to develop your economy. And the way that you develop your economy is by starting businesses and through entrepreneurship. And so what we found is we've expanded our global work, particularly in these last 5 years, is that the need for and the desire for and the enthusiasm for entrepreneurship education is even stronger outside the US than it is within the US. And within the US, we have a well-worn culture, I think, of actually elevating entrepreneurs and business owners. We treat some of them like celebrities and rock stars, and that's justified in some ways, because some of our entrepreneurs are doing incredible things and moving our society forward. In developing economies, there's a different way of thinking about entrepreneurship, and it's much more about, how do I make my way out of this tough circumstance that I'm in, to be able to provide a better life for myself and my family, and ultimately perhaps my society. And so all of the elements of entrepreneurship, really feed into that desire. I heard one time a definition of entrepreneurship that I really liked, and I think it's very applicable to the global context and the developing economy context in particular. That definition was, entrepreneurship is the ability to make progress irrespective of available resources.
Mm.
And I love that definition because it centers you on the idea that you don't have to have resources in hand. You don't have to have networks and people to help you. You can become an entrepreneur just by the power of your own mind and your own drive. And I think the commonality between the work we do around the world and the work we do in the US is just that. When you begin to educate students on what entrepreneurship is and the process of entrepreneurship, they see that they themselves can bring something powerful into the world. And as a part of that, bring themselves into the world more powerfully.
So Nifty has now reached over 1 million, close to 1.25 million learners in your history of success. And I'm sure, like any organization, as the president and CEO, there are some success stories that stick out in your mind. So I know our audience would love to hear a couple of those.
Sure, sure. Well, let me start with the story of our current global winner, Raneem Al-Suwadani. So, just 7 years ago, she and her family were refugees from Syria. They came to Rhode Island from Syria, where, as you know, there's been conflict raging for many, many years. And she participated in an NFTE program with the school with which we've had a long-standing relationship. And her business was a food truck. But it wasn't just that she wanted to operate a food truck. She wanted to do what I call an infrastructure equity business, meaning that she looked around at her community and she saw that there were a lot of home cooks, micro entrepreneurs. This is, just coming out of COVID, right, where people were doing more of that kind of thing. And she realized that she had an opportunity to support economic development in her community by having a food truck and making it available to culinary micro entrepreneurs who couldn't afford a commercial kitchen or a ghost kitchen. And so that was the basis of her business idea. So it was a wonderful pitch. She framed the pitch around her American dream and talked about, what it was like to come from the circumstances that she found herself and to be able to reinvent herself as a young entrepreneur. Like I said, she prevailed first in our national competition, beating out more than 40,000 other students across the US and some really great other business ideas. And then she went on to compete in our global competition against 16 of our 27 country partners, again, with fabulous businesses. And on the heels of winning the global competition, the state of Rhode Island took notice and they gave her a grant to buy the food truck. And so she bought it and she has put her business into operation. And the thing about it is, she is a senior in high school. She is 18 years old. She's going to school full time, and she has now an active business that is helping her and helping her community in just the way that she intended. And that's just one of many stories I could tell of nifty learners who just are passionate about their ideas, are confident in their ability to bring it into the world, and do bring it into the world. And I think that we're going to see more of that. I often speak about how nifty learners tend to create businesses in three categories: traditional products and services, social entrepreneurship, and we get many, many students who have social entrepreneurship-based businesses, and then app-based businesses, internet-based businesses. What I've seen, particularly coming out of COVID, is this fourth category that I'd mentioned, Raneem's category of infrastructure equity. The current generation, Generation Z and post-Generation Z, they're very concerned about, they care for each other. They care for each other. They want to see that everybody has a fair shot at living out their dreams. And so I love these businesses that not only empower the entrepreneur herself or himself, but also empower others.
Great. So you have a lot of evidence-based programming and models in place at Nifty, and you talk about this experiential learning model that ignites this entrepreneurial mindset. And so, some people say, oh, well, they're born with the entrepreneurial spirit or they've developed it, but you've created this model that can ignite that entrepreneurial mindset. Tell us about that model and how you implement it.
Yeah, and let me go back to what you just said. I hear all the time, or I'm asked all the time, is creativity, is entrepreneurship something that can really be taught? I thought it was just innate. And
Right.
surely there are people who have an innate creativity or entrepreneurial spirit, but we firmly believe at Nifty that entrepreneurship and creativity is something that can be taught. And in fact, our programs are designed around cultivating what we call the entrepreneurial mindset. It's 8 skills and domains that we think are essential for every entrepreneur to have. So there are things like the ability to communicate well, the ability to collaborate well, to engage in problem solving, to engage in critical thinking, but also some things that you might not hear about every day, like the ability to spot opportunities, the ability to recognize where the future is going, the ability to manage risk. Those are some of the entrepreneurial mindset domains that we actually teach lessons about and help our students develop. And as part of our curriculum, we actually have an assessment where we measure these capabilities uh, before students start a Nifty program and then after students take the Nifty program. And we can measure the growth in students learning in each of these domains. So that's one element of our model. The other element is more functional. Every business needs a good business plan. And what is a business plan? A business plan is composed of what is your idea? Who are your customers? Who are your competitors? What is your marketing plan? What is your financing plan? How are you going to make a profit? And then how are you going to put that all together and express that to people who would invest in your business? And so that's what Nifty programs, whether they're a camp program, an after school program, an in-school program, they all do. They all walk students through that process. And we use something called a lean canvas model where students articulate that, and then that feeds into pitch decks and pitch competitions. So our students engage in what we call kind of stealth learning in some ways, because they're learning how to become better speakers, they're learning how to become better analysts of facts and figures in front of them, they're increasing their math skills, they're increasing their writing skills by putting together a business plan. So it's a model that really engages students in a different way around academic learning, and it starts with an idea that a student is passionate about.
It's great. And I would imagine that underlying all of that is this building self-confidence, right? It feels like so much of building an entrepreneurial mindset is instilling the confidence in these young people that they can actually be successful. And I know that's a big part of what you all focus on as well.
That's absolutely right. So it's very common for students to be really afraid to do a pitch at the beginning of the program, and it's wonderful. And I see it all around the country and all around the world. The transformation of students when I may visit a classroom at the beginning of a program, and then towards the end, and the same student who was reluctant, hiding their face, not wanting to do the pitch, is now proudly pitching their business idea, telling jokes, really getting into it. And that's another wonderful byproduct of what we do.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned classrooms, and we talk about the 3 Ps here at WFYC. We talk about safe places, obviously, where children can learn and grow. We talk about meaningful programs, which obviously you have developed at Nifty. But really the key ingredient, what sits in the middle there, is the people. And I know that a big part of the success of your model is trained teachers and skilled volunteers. And so share with the audience a little bit about the importance of those people in carrying out Nifty's models.
Yes, so it's really critical. As I said, we have developed the curriculum and we educate teachers to deliver that curriculum in the classroom, but that's just the start. We also have a widespread network of volunteers from a wide variety of companies such as EY, Citi, Goldman Sachs, SAP, Microsoft, Zora, Mary Kay, you name it, PayPal. I could go on all day. But professionals who are working for companies that are well established, often global businesses. And so they come into classrooms and they have the know-how to help students understand how to take the idea that they're developing and really develop it further and properly. They often work with students with repeatedly on different components of the business plan. So you may have somebody, from Santander Bank who is going to be, drilling down on the financials with a student. And these volunteers from different companies come to classrooms on a regular basis. We also have opportunities for students to go to the companies, because an important part of entrepreneurship is knowing what sectors and types of businesses there are out there. And one of the biggest needs that our students have is that in their daily lives, they don't get the opportunity to see much outside their neighborhoods necessarily. So getting them into the companies and learning about the companies is another important piece. It also goes back, the mentorship and volunteer relationship is a critical component of what we were just discussing, which is building confidence. When a young person sees that a professional is invested in them, believes in them, and is in some way a role model for them, they respond. And so that is part and parcel of the growth that I was talking about earlier, the transformation of our students as they not only learn the content, but they also see, oh, this person, I could be like this person. I could work at this company. I could be an entrepreneur within this company. That is a big purpose of the volunteer support model. And I think it's crucial to what we do.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I would guess that you see just as powerful an impact on the volunteers and teachers as you do on the young people. I can imagine being one of those volunteers and seeing myself in some of those young people and knowing that you are lifting them up out of the circumstances they're living in. That has to be a pretty powerful experience for your volunteers as well.
It absolutely is. And, we just released our top 10 list of top 10 volunteers around the world. And they will tell you it's almost like an addiction, that what they get from being with students and the reward that they get, they keep coming back. And we have some truly dedicated volunteers who spend hundreds of hours every cycle with a student or a classroom.
So, in working with these budding entrepreneurs as they're putting together their business ideas, what are the big issues that you see them dealing with?
Well, I think that the social consciousness of the young generation is just amazing. It's off the charts. And, not surprisingly, I think it's informed by a very well-informed view of our world and what's going on in it. I mean, we've had a pandemic, we've had social unrest, we have wars going on throughout the world. And I think in one way or another, these themes or the outgrowths of these themes find themselves in students' business ideas. So, for example, mental health is a big issue that emerges in many students' business plans. So, ideas for a counseling service to help students with mental health, or expanding mental health services in a community. I don't think you would have seen so many students propose business ideas like that prior to the pandemic or prior to some of the issues that we see going on in our world. But we do now. And so I think that's very apropos. Very interestingly, I've noticed that in the US and around the world, there's a great deal of youth interest in students wanting to start businesses that serve people with disabilities. And oftentimes that comes from the example of someone with a disability in one's family or one's community. Maybe it comes from a sort of broader awareness that this is an area that government services have typically taken the fore, but entrepreneurship has an opportunity too. So, a couple of years ago, we had a national winner, Jose Rodriguez, who has a brother with autism, and he founded an apparel company called Tazium, which is autism, the letters scrambled up. And it's apparel and implements to help students with disabilities manage the effects of their disabilities. So things like fidget toys or T-shirts that have grommets in them so that students can be close to implements that they need to help them manage the effects of their disability without losing them so easily. Brilliant idea, simple idea, and a company that Jose continues to run as a college students now several years after being part of the NFTE program. The third issue that I'd say students are very concerned about is climate change and sustainability. And so every year around the world, we see that. And it doesn't matter what country it is. There is a great concern about the environment and protecting the environment and protecting the world. And students have really interesting ideas, often technologically advanced ideas that they bring to a NFTE competition. So in our global competition this past cycle, we had a group of students from Argentina who developed a new type of sustainable battery to help power household appliances, and they had a working prototype. So just so your viewers know, NFTE programs are not just about creating an idea in concept and going no further. No, many of our students are tinkering with electronics and creating physical prototypes and even bringing their business into existence as active students. And that's one of the great joys of NFTE. It's also a great joy to know that the future is in good hands, or appears to be, because these young students express such concern about responding positively to the issues that they see in and around their world.
I agree. That's exciting and encouraging to know that not only are they gaining this entrepreneurial mindset and skills, but they're doing so with an awareness towards how can they solve for the social issues that they see in their own communities and culture. So thanks for sharing that. You mentioned earlier you're now working in 30 states here in the US, and you're working in 27 countries globally. As you work to implement this model around the world, talk to us about some of the challenges with global implementation, or maybe another way to say it is, what are the keys to success that transcend all geographies? I mean, what are the lessons learned from this global implementation?
One of the most interesting things that I encounter as I go around the world now to NFTE sites is to understand how entrepreneurship fits with that country's particular culture and why they are doing entrepreneurship, why they are doing NFTE there, as opposed to the reasons why we do it in the US. In the US, we do it because we believe in entrepreneurship. It's, free enterprise is one of the bedrock principles of our country. I'll give you a different example. Singapore, where we have a long-standing partnership with a foundation called Halogen, and NFTE has been present in many, many schools for many, many years. And I asked their CEO, Halogen CEO, why did you partner with us in the first place so many years ago? And she said, well, Singapore is a country where the social safety net is very strong, and people are guaranteed housing, people are largely guaranteed employment. And so that makes them very conservative. It makes them very risk averse. And she said, the social safety net is a wonderful thing, but you also need people who can carry the society forward. And that's where entrepreneurship comes in. So she said, among families and among youth, there is a big impulse not to take risks, not to take chances, not to take a chance to be who you are because of what the society provides. So entrepreneurship is a counterbalance to that. So I could tell you similar examples from many, many different countries. I'll share one more. I was recently in Saudi Arabia, where we're doing an increasing amount of work. And there, as you know, the country has been powered by the oil economy for many, many years. Now the current king is trying to engage in a rapid transformation of the society, and entrepreneurship is a part of that because aside from small shops, and small family owned businesses, there hasn't been that kind of other type of entrepreneurship, sort of mid-sized companies that a more developed economy might have. And entrepreneurship was never formally taught in the schools because, again, it's a kingdom powered by an oil economy. And so the need for mass entrepreneurship was not necessarily there. So in that case, it is a key part of the societal transformation that they hope to undertake over the next 30 or so years. So it's fascinating to go around the world and talk to people about why entrepreneurship resonates for them and their culture and their country, because you get a different answer every time.
Yeah, thank you for that. So speaking of global implementation, WFYC was connected with Nifty months ago. We've been working with you and your team to talk about how do we implement these models and curriculums in our youth clubs around the world. And we've drilled down to a couple of specific opportunities to start with, one being the BizCamp program and one being the Started Up program. And so particularly for our WFYC affiliates listening, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about those two opportunities in particular.
Biz camps are wonderful. I love biz camps because I have seen some of the best nifty businesses come out of a biz camp. A biz camp is an attenuated, like very focused kind of entrepreneurship experience. It's a little intense, but what I've found is that when students go through the biz camp for just the few weeks that comprise it, and they're really focused on developing a business idea, they can come to generate and grow in these capacities of the entrepreneurial mindset that I was talking about really, really quickly. As a matter of fact, one of our most prominent Nifty alumni is a graduate of a Nifty biz camp. So your viewers and listeners may have heard of Compass, the real estate company. They're active all around the U.S. You'll see their signs, and they even have shops in different communities where they advertise real estate. Their founder, Robert Refkin, got his start as an entrepreneur at a Nifty Biz Camp in Oakland, California, some 20 plus years ago. So it's the sort of thing, because it's so intensive, that it can really light a spark and then really light a fire from there quite quickly. And as I said, it's what we found is that giving a focused and consistent opportunity like that over a set of weeks can really yield some fine business plans. Started Up is a program that we developed during the pandemic. It was really meant to be for everybody, including post-secondary students and adults, and it gives a more a sort of platform-based, lighter touch introduction to entrepreneurship. And so it's another way that students can dip their toes into entrepreneurship, get a sense of the fundamental principles, and get on the road to developing more of a business plan. So I think both of those are really great choices for your partners and your students and your constituents. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where the partnership goes and what we can do together, because I know those two programs are going to be the foundation for a lot of good ideas from your young people.
We're excited as well, and we appreciate the partnership. As we begin to wrap up, what have we not talked about? What have I not asked you that you think would be important for our audience to know about Nifty and the work you're doing around the world?
Well, I'd like to take a moment to just say that entrepreneurship is something that I ultimately believe every student should be exposed to. As I said, here in the US, it is a foundational idea behind our country, the idea of individual self-actualization, the idea of promoting free enterprise as the basis of a healthy society. And I've always found it strange that it's not a required topic in US schools.
Agreed.
So from that perspective, we've begun now to engage in policy work, advocacy work with Congress and with state legislatures who often make the rules around education for their states, to encourage entrepreneurship to be more of a part of everybody's regular school day. So I wanted to let your listeners and viewers know about that, because it's something we're doing more on. And we're putting out policy briefs that are available on our website. And if any of your constituents are interested in that angle of what we do, we'd love to have folks read our policy briefs around different topics and give us feedback. The other thing I'll mention is that, these days everybody's talking about AI. And we are on the AI bandwagon like everybody else at Nifty. We've incorporated some new tools into our programming that I think are going to be really fantastic. So one simple tool, but it's one that actually is super helpful in the global context, is something we call the Nifty Read Along Companion. And it's an AI voice-enabled tool that gives a voiceover to every Nifty program in any language in which it needs to be available. And so that's going to expand the capacity of our organization to deliver our programs massively, and we're really excited about that. I would also note that, when I go around to schools in the US and around the world, more and more I'm seeing students utilize AI both as the basis for their business or to help them put together their business plans. So for example, you might have a student who has some kind of AI powered chatbot, that's a basis of a business of some kind. Or you will go and you'll see a very snazzy presentation. I'll say, wow, how'd you put that together? And say, oh, I used AI. And I wholeheartedly embrace this, because while I would not say that everything about AI is good, I think it's clearly where things are going. And organizations like ours would do well to understand that that is the case and to build those tools in. So for any of your viewers or listeners who are similarly interested in AI, know that Nifty has been really thoughtful about incorporating these tools into our programming.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you, more importantly, for the partnership with Nifty. You and your team have been amazing. We are excited about what this means for our WFYC affiliates and the types of tools and resources and curriculum that we're going to be able to offer them through our partnership with you. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today for this episode of Youth Development Beyond Borders. I hope you will join us for future episodes. I hope you will follow us at WFYC on social media and keep up with our happenings. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Youth Development Beyond Borders. JD, thank you again.
You're welcome. Pleasure.